know, if you were to go back and do the old experiments where the rats have liquid cocaine and knowing they're trapped and they just kill themselves by taking the cocaine, it's because they're isolated and separate. And so the rat park experiments open up this glorious park where the rats can play together, they can interact, they can mingle, they can hump, they can play. And the thing that's come out of that for us who have suffered from addiction is the opposite of addiction is connection. People need each other. But what isn't talked about enough is that we also need to play. Like the park, it is the rat park experiment. It's not just connecting and humping and having a gossipy conversation or something meaningful with another rat or another person in our case. It's also opening up, what does playfulness look like? Because we put that on the lower rung of what society would consider a productive use of time. Yes. Versus parenting, versus paying the bills, versus having a safety net. And playfulness is the last part. And I think if we can find healthy ways to play and escape, it just opens up all these possibilities of, it eliminates the fear of missing out, and it opens up a dynamic space where we can use our freedom in great ways.
Here we are. Welcome to Present and Sober podcast. Very, very, very special occasion today. Got a real treat for you. We have possibly our most requested repeat guest here with us, which is just a delight. We had a ball last time, and so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We've got Jeff with us. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Was Eckhart Tolle upset that he got bumped?
Oh, dude. Yeah, it's a good job we've got you here just to like stop the incessant messages and emails. Like it's going to give us a break for a week. So
I just figured I just envisioned Eckhart Tolle chiming in, and you're like, not now.
Not now. Not now. Got Jeff, I'm afraid. Yeah. So yes, Jeff's in the Dominican. So we're going to get a little glimpse of the beautiful environment over there, and if you haven't met Jeff before, please, if you're a new listener to the podcast, please go back. You don't have to go back too far. Jeff was last with us in August of last year, episode 114.
You professional.
I did do some preparation, so both Jeff and I've prepared for this episode, and Sam's just rocking up. Hey, Sam.
Yeah, I'm joyfully ill prepared. That's how I run the shop.
Sounds about right. So Jeff, where's a good place to start, my friend? Because we've got so many things that we wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah, there really is, and that's a great reference point going back to the old podcast. But really, it's like what we talked about on the last podcast is occurring, and yet some of those key points are 4 or 5 Jeffs ago. You know, it's like you get sober, you write a book, you do the sober living in Western civilization. And I think really sobriety and recovery just constantly begs you the question, now what? You know, because now you have this dynamic component of freedom to go, well, if I can do that, what else can we do? And so really my wife, Tammy, and I, we decided, hey, if we're going to publish this book, we really want to, like, the book is Finding Bishop Castle, a road trip to recovery. We thought, hey, if we're going to publish this book, why don't we do it in a unique way where we cash out? We sold our primary home. It really, just as a somewhat codependent person, I didn't want to publish a book that people were asking for and then not have the time to follow it up. And so I concocted this plan that, hey, why don't we just cash out? We cash out our primary home. I sell my business. Tammy left her corporate job, and we decided to buy a condo in the Dominican Republic, publish the book, follow it up. And really then the overall premise of the book is really in a unique way in recovery, finding ways to play, new ways to spend our time. So Afterglow Recovery was born, and we're not doing all the nuts and bolts work of recovery. We're an arrow in the quiver that we just call playfulness, where we invite people out to vacation, not to retreat, not to work on themselves, but just work on themselves in a way that gives them some escape and relief to really enjoy the beach, the sun, the sand, any sorts of adventures they want. And, you know, we're in about our second year, second full season. We had a beta season where we made sure that we didn't drown anybody or, you know, lose any limbs or anything. So we had some tests. We brought my son out and a real close friend in recovery on a beta season, but we're in our third full season of just inviting people out. And we just thought to ourselves, this is the life we want to live anyway. We're you know, bounced back between Colorado and here, and this is the life we want to live anyway. Let's invite people who might be triggered in a vacation beach environment to come out, meet us, hang out, make some jokes, play in the sand, and, you know, support them in that in an alcohol-free way, which they might have not thought possible. So this is what we're doing. We're here. The Wi-Fi works, and we're getting to communicate to you from an island instead of the mountains of Colorado this season. So
it's very cool. So how many folks have you had out there so far?
Let's see. This season alone, we've had four different trips come out, including a family with their 10-year-old son.
Oh, wow.
Last season, we probably had upwards of 3 or 4. We had couples, we had singles, solo travelers. You know, we have just brilliant people who might not have a traveling partner or be in between, and it's just automatic connected friendship. It's like, take the alcohol component. We already know who we are. That part is clear. So we just get to move on and organically, without any sort of shame, without any sort of stigma, to be able to talk about our lives in a real holistic way in a dynamic environment. And we hit the season pretty hard, October through December this season. We've had family members, my family members, come out, and 3 years in, they're saying, okay, you know, my son, my brother, he's not crazy. We're seeing these incredible pictures on Facebook, and we think we'll go out too. So it's like I said, it's the life we're living, and we're just inviting people to participate in it. So
cool, man. Like, so that's quite an adventure. And I think you're literally living the dream in the kind of way a lot of people would say, oh, I wish I could insert all the awesome stuff that Jeff's doing. And then they kind of innocently have all these insecurities and barriers. I would love to know, and I'm sure our listeners would as well. You know, what are some of the big things that you've learned from this journey? You know, three years in, like, how have you been touched by this?
I think so. I would back up to our former life. That was the dream also. So if anybody was to say, you own a small business, you make your own hours, your wife has incredible insurance, you know, the kids are out of the house, they're well adjusted, you don't have a mortgage, you know, those are also the dreams. So, and people would say, our relationship as well, they would say, I'd kill to have your old life, you're giving it up. So there are also insecurities in what we're doing. We're not of retirement age. We don't have a huge safety net. But I think sometimes I would just say in general, it wouldn't have to be jumping onto an island or doing something dynamic. Anytime you open up your heart for a deeper purpose or a cause, it involves risk. I mean, if you were to, you know, pull a friend aside and tell them something vulnerable, you're opening your heart, and you're subjecting yourself to a certain amount of risk. Will they understand? Will my family understand? Our people are deeply rooted in the state that we grew up, and when we told them this, they thought, you're out of your mind. Like, are you drinking again? You know, it's like all those. So we still have our insecurities. They're just different ways. What I've learned, though, here in the Dominican Republic, and I've learned offloading your Western responsibilities of sorts, is that the same things that bring us joy can happen on your back patio at home where you're at. So carving out time to make a music playlist in a very busy Western society, if someone said, "What did you do today?" and you said, "Oh, well, I made a collection of my top 50 80s new wave tunes," right? They would go, "Oh, must be nice," right? And you might have a hard time sharing that with them because you have an identity of, I'm a very busy, responsible, you might say, "Oh, and I was cooking for the kids and adjusting their lunches for the work week." Because if you were to just say, "I had time to make a music playlist," you might wonder what that says about you to someone else. The things that are most joyful here are sitting on my back, having time to watch the ocean break against the rocks, have a thought and sit with it instead of racing to the next thought or getting the next thing, listening to music, chopping vegetables. They're the same things that if you carved out and adjusted your schedule at home would bring you joy there or anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm. There was something I was thinking about as you were talking, Jeff, that Sam, you'll have heard this quite a while ago. Annie Grace, who is behind This Naked Mind, she was hanging out a lot with Brooke Castillo from the Life Coach School. And anybody that knows Brooke Castillo knows how like ambitious this chick is. Like she's shooting for the stars with her business. She talks very openly about money and goals around that. And in one of they struck up a friendship, and in one of their conversations, I think Brooke was kind of encouraging Annie around the, scaling This Naked Mind as a business. But with there was an element of it being tempered with this notion. She said to her, "What you need to realize is it's not better there than here." So we can have like these, big goals and lofty aims and all the rest of it. And certainly for a lot of my drinking life, I was living out in the future. And of course, that's not possible. So what happens when you live out in the future? Well, you miss out on the only thing that you have, the present moment. And naturally, as we know with substances like alcohol, the living out in the future isn't always glorious. It can, certainly for me, it was anxiety ridden. So there's something really wonderful in the recognition of what, like, wherever you're at and whatever you're doing with your life, we don't have to wait to be happy, content, joyful, peaceful, whatever those things are. And of course, like, I would love to be out in the Dominican Republic right now. God, I would love to be there. I haven't been there for many, many years. But certainly what you're saying is true, that you can tap into that feeling, because it's the essence of, who and what we are in in rural Cambridgeshire, as well as I could tap into it in the Dominican. Sure.
Yeah. Something can carry the same form, cubicle, at an office, a corporate office can carry the same form. It's the same cubicle. It's the intention and the spirit behind the person who sits in it. So that might be somebody's dream job. Oh, I get to put this headset on and I can't believe I get to talk to customers today and they brighten my day. And the other person can loathe it. I find my environment here doesn't change, and my spirit and my persona doesn't change when I get back to the States or I get back to busyness. What I've learned here, I'm taking back home, so I don't get caught in the same sort of wormholes that brought me, or were potentially brought me, into a place where I was trying to escape with alcohol in the first place. So it's a learning process. It's a beautiful learning process. I was still learning. Yesterday, I'll paint the picture for you. So yesterday, I told Tammy, I said, I'm going to go on a walk. And sometimes my walks are purposeful. I'm going to exercise. I said, I'm just going to find a place and sit and just be with my thoughts a little bit and maybe prepare. And so I get this 1 mile stretch of open beach. There's a little palm tree and it's kind of stunted, so it's providing some shade. There's literally a stump begging me to sit on it in the shade. And I sit on it. I look out, I've got surfers a half a mile in each direction, sort of out there flanking the corners of this beach, and it's completely private. And so I'm having this thought, I'm kind of toggling through what my word of the year is this year. And my word of the year was the same as my word of the year last year, which is earnestness. Like the things that I do, I don't want to be seen just to be seen. I don't want to put myself or my pictures out there just because it's going to get some likes. I want to do everything with a purpose. And one of my premises is that I don't should on myself. Like I don't, you should do this, or you should do this, or the world telling me, you know what, if you did this, you should do this. And it's like, if that's coming from the inside of me saying, I should do something, I want to check it with earnestness, that I'm doing it for a purpose and not because somebody else would want to see it. So I'm sitting there, I'm kind of reinventing this idea because it was my word last year. And of course, I come around to the podcast and the end of December, and I said, you should have a new word for 2024. And my word gave me permission to not get, it's like, I don't should on myself. I shouldn't get a new word. I should stick with the word that I had for last year. So I'm just kind of having this idea on the beach. I've got just majesty in both directions. And a group of horses, tourists, come right in front of me. And I'm on my phone, I'm punching in a couple ideas. They come right in front of me and they go past me. They kind of catch my attention because, yes, horses. And my thought in that moment was, wow, they think that I'm just on my phone. Like in that moment when I'm having this deep thought, I cared what complete strangers thought about me. And this one lady, I'm sitting there on this stump, elbows on my legs, phone in hand. One lady looks back at me in horror, and I'm like, wow, they really think I'm on my phone, just not capturing the majesty, right? And then I get the idea as they go off into the jungle, oh, she thinks I was taking a shit.
That's great.
And in this deep moment, where I'm talking about doing things in earnest and not caring what people think about me, I just wanted to run back into the jungle off the beach and go, I wasn't taking a shit. I was doing something important for Sam and Ellie.
You can do important things while taking a shit. Like, you know, it can happen.
So to circle back to what you were saying about Annie Grace and her partner, we're the opposite of ambition out here. Like no ambition. We just have free-flowing thoughts, and you know, we sometimes don't want to be seen. We're working on, you know, what is this glorious, hey, look at where we're at, and tempering that with earnestness and going, this is our life. If you want to come in, we welcome you, but we're not gonna look at us and not you type thing, because I think that what we're experiencing here can be experienced. And really, we just want to teach people about playfulness. You know, it's like playfulness is, I think playfulness is a key component. I think you had somebody in your group that was saying that that was their word of the year. And I go back to like the Johann Hari, where he talks about the opposite of addiction is connection. And he uses the rat park experiments. And I don't know how much you've talked about that. But, you know, if you were to go back and do the old experiments where the rats have liquid cocaine and knowing they're trapped and they just kill themselves by taking the cocaine, it's because they're isolated and separate. And so the rat park experiments open up this glorious park where the rats can play together, they can interact, they can mingle, they can hump, they can play. And the thing that's come out of that for us who have suffered from addiction is the opposite of addiction is connection. People need each other. But what isn't talked about enough is that we also need to play. Like the park, it is the rat park experiment. It's not just connecting and humping and having a gossipy conversation or something meaningful with another rat or another person in our case. It's also opening up what does playfulness look like? Because we put that on the lower rung of what society would consider a productive use of time, yes, versus parenting, versus paying the bills, versus having a safety net. And playfulness is the last part. And I think if we can find healthy ways to play and escape, it just opens up all these possibilities of, it eliminates the fear of missing out, and it opens up a dynamic space where we can use our freedom in great ways.
It's really cool. I actually think as well, like, I really respect the kind of the earnestness and the pursuit of stuff, but I think earnestness without playfulness can be a trap. And because of having spent a lot of time in spiritual circles where people are incredibly earnest, you know, they're very kind of committed, very serious, they're on the path, but they're kind of missing out on the fact that the universe has got a fucking great sense of humor. Like it's constantly taking the piss out of us, and it's just funny, you know, all the stuff that can happen. And I think, yeah, so I think probably naturally, for whatever, you know, life and just, you know, gifts and all the rest of it, Jeff, you naturally embody those two energies, or however we want to think about them. And yeah, I think it's important to have the two together. Together, they're very, very powerful. And I think potentially those two things separated can become, well, just, I don't know, it's just different. I don't know if that resonates with you, but it seems very true to me.
It does. And the word earnest just has stifling sound to it, where it's somber and serious, and really, to me, earnestness is doing something that's real and sincere and true. I think for us who work in the recovery space and are, by all intents and purposes, visibly seen, that's part of our model, is to be seen. The healthier we get in recovery, and the better we get in our own skin, the less it's necessary for us to even want to be seen. Does that make sense? I think that so much of alcoholism, being prone to the misuse of alcohol, is wanting to be seen. So I want this sophisticated identity around my drinking so I can be with friends, so I'm in the in group, so that people know I'll drink poison and I'll die for it. It's this sort of primal, I'll be in the in group and I'll die. It's literally saying I'll die. Yeah. Yeah. I'll ingest this so I can be with you, so you know I'll go to bat for you. So much of our compulsion to misuse of alcohol is us wanting to be seen, right? To know that I'm in your circle. And the more comfortable we get not depending on alcohol, the more comfortable we get in our own skin, the more we don't need to be seen. So I don't know if you ever retract where you go, I don't need to be put out there today because I'm okay in here. Oh. To me, that earnestness is nowhere near serious as it is wanting to be authentic with knowing who I am on the inside, and not needing that validation from social media or my former friends or that sort. Yeah. And we had a family out, and talk about not serious. We had a family out, the husband and wife, they were both sober. Shout out to the Roots. They'll love the shout out. And they had their 10-year-old son with us. And this is how serious we weren't. We're walking on the beach and we're just playing with snails. So we're pulling snails up from the rocks and we're letting them kind of travel on our fingers, and we're videoing it. And the husband, father, we're walking in the sand together. And I said, you realize if your family wasn't here right now, we could be videoing us putting these on our nipples. So that's how serious we're not around here.
I'm like, I'd have been doing that shit anyway.
And did you?
That's the best thing about recovery that people who don't know is that you get to be goofy and silly and have bar talk 24 hours a day instead of tuning yourself up at the 10 p.m. hour, you know?
It's a good point.
Yeah. one of the things that when you were talking about the almost like being willing to poison yourself to essentially to fit in, it's like the ultimate abandonment of self, and doing that consistently over and over for such a long period of time. This is, so my belief is like, this is the, how we become so disconnected from ourselves. And for me, somebody was asking me the other day about like what was my thoughts on the word recovery, and I said, well, to me, recovery isn't necessarily that you're healing from something. It's not recovery from something. It's the recovery of your true self. So it's this trip back to authenticity, to being in full integrity with yourself, the recovery of who and what you truly are. That's what it feels like to me. And I'd love to know what you think on it, because it's, it's for some people it can be such a loaded word. And this request, this kind of like, can we discuss this term, came from, I think, some resistance to kind of associating yourself with a word like recovery, which to me is such a beautiful word. But I think, people can interpret it differently.
You make a great point, because I think every single one of us who have struggled with alcohol addiction, dependence, misuse, has said, well, who will I be without this? It becomes your identity. Not just fitting in because this is who I am. It becomes nighttime by yourself, not fitting in anymore. This is who I am. And we've all said, well, who will I be without this? And that's such a scary thing. It's saying, I've got to put this down because this has become my identity. But recovering the person you were, that kid who can, play on the baseball field and suck oranges, and you didn't need alcohol on the bench after the game. So recovering who you were, that child, that playfulness, the person who wasn't dependent, and opening up all those opportunities of who you could be. It really just, recovery begs the question, and for most of us who are entrenched in a cycle of shame, mourning recovery, repeat, shame, failure, those things that we cycle in when we're in deep dependence, that becomes our identity, and we have no idea who we'll be without it. And I mean, all of us who have put ourselves on the path for long enough go, I could be anything, and it just doesn't feel like that when you're entrenched in the cycle.
For sure.
Yeah, I really love that. I used to have I used to have this question. I think we even spoke about it when you were last on the podcast, man, where, so in one form of recovery, it's like, well, when are we recovered, right? Because that kind of thing. But I really kind of like this this idea of recovering something that was always there, or even uncovering something that was always there again, right? And coming from that space. Yeah, it's such a beautiful expression of what we gained, because I think that thing of like, who will I be, it's often rooted in this real deep fear that we're going to be losing so much stuff. We feel like we're going to be less than, and we've just kind of, over time, we just forgot. We've just kind of been in this kind of inertia of just how wonderful everything was and what it was like to be a teenager. And we have this story that says something like, yeah, kids and teenagers, they feel like that. It's hormones and stuff, and then you become an adult and things get a bit shit and a bit gray, and then you start drinking, and, that's as good as it gets, kind of thing. And I think to that Laura McCowan thing, we're the lucky ones, or we are the luckiest, and I think, yeah, we fucking are the luckiest, because there's part of me that's like, playing my hand so hard, so fast, so young. There was a time where I was like, this is a fuck up. This is a complete wreck. And now I'm like so grateful that it went that way, because I get to play and explore. And yeah, I think as a metaphor, like wherever someone's Dominican is, and whether it's in the Dominican or whether it's like, as you say, anywhere, wherever it is, it's there, that ability to be able to play and come home to yourself and just enjoy and explore is always one insight or one thought away. It's never any further than that. I heard a beautiful quote the other day, and someone I trust very deeply said, the furthest we can ever be from wisdom is one thought. It's like, yeah, that's so true, because for so many of us, we've had this story that we're years away from figuring it out, or that we're years away from it, but actually it's already there, you know. And whatever thought we innocently think is more important than being in the moment, that's what's pulling us away from it. And any moment we realize we've been caught on that one thought, boom, we fall back into the moment, because it's the only place we've ever been anyway, right? I can't wait to come out and play, man. It's gonna be.
We said that last time. We're still not there, Sam. We should take a trip down after Tampa.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous fun, and we're kind of coasting this. We've got 2 months left in the season before, well, a month and a half left in the season before we return back to Colorado. But we're kind of coasting. We don't have a lot of visitors, but we had such a front load of visitors at the beginning of the season that Tammy and I are just taking a time to reset and go, you know, okay, we've got some open space. We've been busy. We've been opening up everything for everybody else. Let's open this up for ourselves. And so, you know, we're starting to play a little bit, and we're, you know, have a couple of design ideas and health things we want to. Sometimes we eat amazing, but then we get on a roll with visitors and we're hitting breakfast, lunch, dinner, dynamic race. So we can easily, you know, let ourselves go from our exercise regimen and, you know, the food we would consider most healthy, because we're actually being hospitable and entertaining. And so we're gonna have a month and a half here where we're being together and we're working on ourselves, and you know, seeing just what's next, the idea of asking what's next. So it's so much. So when you come out, I promise you a blast. Yeah.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Well, let's talk a little bit about Tammy and you together, because when we met last, I was really intrigued as to, you know, how the dynamic works, because certainly at the time that we met last, Tammy was drinking moderately. Is that a fair reflection?
Yes.
And I think I asked at the time, like, how does that work? Like, how do you navigate that together?
Well, I've always considered, there's no doubt that I had physical dependence with all of the consequences that came with being a dependent drinker, all the consequences. And in our relationship, for 5+ years, our marriage, while I didn't have the consequences, I still had the abuse and misuse, and she would just try and pace me during that time. When I came to the realization 5 years into our marriage that I needed to quit, she was 100, has always been 100% supportive, but we knew this wasn't her issue, this was my issue. And so that support I've been sober 7 years, that support over a 7-year period has been one of complete abstinence on her part, so that she was literally my live-in cheerleader and support partner. And I would say this for any relationship or any issue, alcohol or otherwise, good communication. 100 days in, I'm feeling a little more free. She would say, hey, I'm going to go, you know, visit my adult daughter. I'm going to have some drinks. Does that bother you? Are you going to be okay alone? You know, so it starts with that communication. Next day, hey, how'd you feel about that? Knowing that I was released to do this, but you don't have the same release. If it's 18 months in and I'm telling her, hey, I'm starting to feel like really in control. Like I've learned so many things that I think I could go back to drinking this summer. And she would go, yeah, but do you really want to maybe have the slippery slope? So she's always been my support partner. But with alcohol and the continuity and freedom and my personhood that I've experienced, as I look better and get better, she has also had a leash that's been a little bit longer to just drink with neighbors, with friends on a vacation. And every time it comes with a little bit more of a communication. We'll have a debriefing and whatnot. So this has been kind of the thing for 7 years. And really the debriefings and the rules that we've set around it, while we're on the outside and people are saying, hey, this is what a moderate and abstinent drinking relationship can look like. And out here on social media, we got the finger guns, where we're just like, hey, we got this, there's moments, because alcohol being what it is, we don't got this. And when you asked the question back in August, it was kind of like a needle scratch on the record going, how do you guys do it? Mm-hmm. And we've come to the conclusion towards the end of 2023 is that she doesn't want to participate in drinking anymore. Wow. And that has come from, it's the same thing that a lot of us go through, where we make rules around it and we break the rules. And her breaking of the rules doesn't have to be wrapping a car into a boulder like me, for just the feeling of breaking a rule around it from an agreement that we established didn't feel good enough for her to warrant the treat that it is for her, or the non-treat, because the consequences are the consequences. And so she's allowed me to talk about this a little bit. And for her, she started feeling a little bit more angry when she was drinking, a little bit more aggressive. And I would say that other drinking couples, whatever agreement, a drinking couple, non-drinking couple, whatever they figure out for themselves is the agreement they make between each other. If some guy drinks and he's got a bowling night, and that person who's not drinking and their partner gets to sit at home and read a book, and they actually have a relief, and their space is well used. Our space together, Tammy and I's, are 24/7. We're in the same condo. We're in the same cabin in Colorado. Her participation in drinking is going to have somewhat of a consequence or a reactiveness from me, because I don't get to move in the direction of that inhibition. Mm-hmm. And so she just felt like she was getting more angry, and we don't know that it's because I can't come with her, or we can't be what we used to be, but you can tell the separation in the moment wasn't worth the feeling that she got from being able to participate. And so your question, long-winded answer of how does that work for us after a 7-year experiment, it hasn't worked. Or it's opening up a new space for her and I to discover what it looks like with both of us not using.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I just really appreciate you sharing, because this is such a it's such an important thing for anybody that's in a relationship when they start to embark on this journey. And we hear from people all the time that are in very different situations, either with a partner who is still drinking, or somebody that is also wanting to look at an alcohol-free life. So it's really generous of you to share the very real journey that you've been on and the insights that she had. I mean, that is phenomenal. And I love that the ease that you had with it, that it didn't have to be this or that it could naturally find its way. And the beautiful thing that you put a pin in is the loss of connection, because so many people are drinking thinking that it helps them to connect, and that's just blown up that idea. Like it doesn't help us connect at all.
No, and for us, who we really enjoy each other. I mean, we banter, we kick jokes back and forth. That is one of the debriefs, is if I enjoy a fluid communication style where we're going to joke, and it's not her, it's alcohol being what it is. if she has some inhibition in communication and I enjoy, honestly, we're going to have that moment where we go, you're not connecting. There's a little bit of space in between what is your normal everyday, hey, this is joyous, you know, and those are the debriefs. And yeah, that's one of our things. Anybody who's coming into a place of not using alcohol anymore goes, well, am I going to be able to connect with other people? Are we going to be able to connect with each other? And if I drink, I'll connect at that party. And it widens the gap of connection because of your ability to communicate, to recall stories, to, you know, so for us, I have felt incredibly supported. And yet any relationship has this spectrum of communication where you make an agreement, you test that agreement. Does that agreement work? And that's what a relationship is. And so we've come to a place where, you know, the new set of experiments is her not participating in drinking, and we're actually really excited about it.
It's really cool. I mean, the couple of things that really stand out for me that I think are going to be just amazing for our listeners to know is it can be really easy to get caught up in like shoulds or modeling other people's stuff. And I love that you said, Jeff, you know, it's wisdom based, you know, it's not based on rules. It's not based on anything that's come before. It's based on connection, you know, communication and curiosity, as I see it, and having those dialogues. And I think people are like, oh my God, but what about this and what about that? And what I love so much about your honest share is it's not always going to be perfect, particularly if there's alcohol there. But the thing is, if someone's going to have their own insights and wake up to these insights around connection, it's not going to come from really being told that. Like we wake up and we see it for ourselves. And the way that we do that is by making the kind of love that we have in the relationship and that connection and that wisdom greater than any of those small component parts. And then if this is meant to happen after a year or 2 years or 7 years or 10 years or 12 years, it will happen. And if it's not, it won't. But it won't be, you know, it won't be that thing that we fear it's going, that monster it's going to become in our mind that's going to destroy this or stop this connection, all these, you know, and so I just love it. I love it in so many ways because I think it's a question a lot of people ask. And when they ask the question, what they kind of want at the intellectual level is a how-to. They're like, can you tell me what to do? And the answer that me and Ellie always give, and I know that you would give as well, and I honestly think anybody who's really made any kind of real kind of had any insights in this space is there is no how-to around this shit. Like life is going to give you what's right for you. And for as long as you're looking for that how-to, you're kind of innocently going to be blinded by that. And that's going to fuck stuff up. So I love it. There's so much. And thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it begs Ellie's point from the last podcast is how do you guys do it? And it's like, no, there is no formula.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a formula. And we have to ask ourselves, what we sat back and we said, you know, she goes, how'd the podcast go? I was like, you know, we need to talk. I really got stumped on this that I don't know why. And because people have asked us, hey, you guys should write a book on the combined, and it's always been like a no, like a relationship. The overwhelming criteria of our relationship is kindness and thoughtfulness and seeking the other person's highest good. And so no matter what, it wouldn't be if it was alcohol for her or it was me deciding I wanted to buy a muscle car, we would sit back and go, hey, do you think this is the best thing for, you know, our future ability to move? And, you know, it's like a relationship is good communication, seeking the other person's higher good. And depending on circumstance, whatever the circumstance may be, you've just got to take the next right step. And for us, that's kind of, and for her, that is going to be the next right step in this moment. So no formula, no how-tos, you know,
beautiful
fluidity and observing the data. And like you said, being curious about the results.
I love it. So dude, like we've covered so much ground. I love having these discussions. And I know you said that you had something that you'd kind of love to share. at the end of the podcast. I don't know if that still makes sense, but it was kind of connected to, just the journey or the adventure and where you are now compared to like where you used to be and all that stuff. But yeah, we'd love to hear it if it's still there.
Yeah, I think when we have distance and space, be it years and time, there's a lot of people in the new year, a lot of your listeners, a lot of our friends who are getting curious about quitting alcohol. I remember doing this to somebody who was 5 years into recovery. You look at what they are doing as having it all figured out or being leaps and bounds beyond what they do. And so lately I've been taking this 5-mile beach walk, and I've been paring down my time. And now I feel like I'm getting physical enough to where I want to compete with my former time. And so I'm trying to find these different ways to get to the end point. And so it traverses really deep sand, a little bit of volcanic rock, a jungle, a road with cows on it. And on any given day, my time to get to the finish point is has multiple variables. The tide, being able to walk on hard sand versus. So there's this one stretch that has really deep sand, and you just trudge through it. And what I found is that if I can find a set of footprints and step into those, the sand's a little bit compacted. And that made my time a little bit faster, and it made me get to the end a little bit quicker. And then I wanted to get my time a little bit shorter. And I found that if I found my footsteps from the former day, now I can start walking in those because those are a little bit more comfortable. Those suit me, right? And so instead of walking in somebody else, they're helpful walking in someone else's footsteps, but finding your own are even more comfortable. But as it relates to going to leaps and bounds beyond what some of this looks like for other people, being in the Dominican Republic, working in the recovery space, having your shit together, outwardly looking like that, I found that what that looks like maybe to other people is that I found that if you find a set of horse prints in the beach, that it's deeply compacted, and you're like using not to mention you have a set of 2 to choose from. You've got this deep sand where other people are trudging through, and you're like, they almost act as like starting blocks where you're just powering to the next. So if you look at me going across the beach, I look like I'm on an escalator at the airport or some walking path where other people are trudging through, and someone could look down and go, how is he doing it? How is he getting so far? But it didn't come from just inventing it. It came on just adjusting, walking in someone else's footsteps, getting comfortable in your own. And then it opens up this dynamic possibility to you just fly in ways that you would have never expected in your journey. And so, I mean, I would just say for everybody that's in your real early stages, it's like walk in Sam's footsteps a little bit. Listen to him. Get into a coaching class with Ellie and follow those footsteps. And pretty soon, that's going to become comfortable, and you're going to find your own path, what works for you, and you're going to get your own footsteps. And then this stuff that looks otherworldly and amazing, that's beset for you as well. Once you just get a little bit of traction.
Love that, man.
Oh, I had one of those moments as soon as you said about the footsteps, felt like this wave of grace sweep through me. It's it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
He's magic he's the man of metaphors. I said that before about your book, man. Like, so great with figurative language and painting a picture for people. So well, thank you for coming on, dude. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for all the work that you do in the work, work in the most beautiful sense as well. Like, the writing and these holidays that you host for people. I love that you're like, it's not a retreat. It's not it's just it's playful. We're having fun. And yeah, like it's very, very telling, and it's not surprising to me at all that so many people have said, "Oh, when's Jeff coming back on?" Or like people have such a deep connection with you. And I know that even before we even met in digital person, you know, we all felt like we had such deep connection. And you're a wonderful member of our group and just a wonderful guest. So yeah.
And I've just had a fucking brilliant idea, which I won't say it now because then Sam will tell me off. But when we stop recording, I'll tell you my fucking brilliant idea. And then hopefully it will then be born into the world and we can tell everyone else later.
Yeah, sweet.
Sorry, Jeff, I think I cut you off there with my excitement about my brilliant idea.
I wanted to just say thank you to you guys, because part of our ability to be in this open space of playfulness is literally like having an arrow in the quiver of all of recovery. So if somebody needs something, the nuts and bolts, the true mechanic, the work, we can go, hey, we point you in your direction, and it opens us up. So we're all, you know, we're all an assembly of this grand thing we call of betterment, being bigger. So your gifts and your talents of really doing the nuts and bolts work allows us to be playful. So in a way, Tammy and I, like, we really owe you this.
Oh.
And she's sitting here with me as well. She's hanging out.
Yeah, I was going to say, is she there?
If you're wondering, but part of being playful is us not wearing proper clothing. So we live in our swimsuits.
Sounds great.
So you're getting head up, neck up. But if I swivel the computer, holla.
Can she come say hi?
And she comes, I'm telling you, you think I'm being serious. All right, head up.
Hey! Good to see you, mate.
So cool to see you.
And we'll take you out to the beach as well. We'll just once we're done, we'll disconnect and we'll see how far the Wi-Fi extender can go, and we'll just
let's do it.
Show you some ocean.
Awesome. Well, hey, look, dude, don't need to say it again, but thank you for coming on, and look forward to the next time. Hey,
love you guys.
You too,
love
man.
you too. Thank you so much.